Between the hills, the stars, the sky, the river so clear, river so clear.
Let us join in a spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer as we deepen into our service and share our opening words for this morning from Evan Carville-Zemer, entitled, Our Souls Speak Spring. If we lived in another climate, our souls might speak other languages. We might speak oasis or permafrost, dry season or monsoon. But our souls speak spring. Our souls speak green shoots pushing through last year's leaves. Our souls speak flower buds stretching to the sun. Our souls speak mud puddles and nest building, damp earth and worm castings, tiny green leaves and frog choruses. We speak spring because spring sings in us. We gather to nurture our faith in our own growing, our own courage to push through our own blossoming in beauty. Our own small part in this spring of this world come, let us worship together. Our chalice lighting words are A Spark of Hope by Melanie Davis. If ever there were a time for a candle to be lit in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Our program today comes to us from BLUU, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. Before we delve deeper into that, I'd like to play a brief video on what BLUU is all about.
Of Unitarian Universalism, or BLUU for short, is an inclusive spiritual community for Black people. We are unapologetically Black, unapologetically spiritual, and unapologetically liberated. Unitarian Universalism invites us to honor many spiritual lineages, traditions, and practices, while grounding in our shared commitment to seek justice and curiosity in this life. While BLUU is a Unitarian Universalist community, we invite Black folks who aren't Unitarian Universalists to be part of our BLUU spaces as well. BLUU started in 2015 when a small group of Black Unitarian Universalists met at the Movement for Black Lives convening in Cleveland, Ohio. Since then, we've created a thriving community where people can worship together, learn more about justice and organizing, and enjoy getting to know other Black folks who care about the spiritual call to collective liberation. We center queer and trans people in our staff leadership and in our programming. We honor our elders and appreciate the wisdom of our youth. We have meaningful gatherings virtually and in person. During our worship spaces, we often say, "Welcome home." That's because we mean it. We're BLUU. Nice to meet you.
Lena K. Gardner is the executive director and co-founder of Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, or BLUU. She has her Master's of Arts in Justice and Peace Studies from the United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. She lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with her daughter, Winnie. Lena was active in the movement for Black Lives between 2013 and 2016 as a central leader of the Black Lives Matter Minneapolis chapter, and in her Unitarian Universalist faith locally and nationally since 2012. Lena is a dear friend and, like I said, a member of our chosen family. She's a maid of honor in our wedding, and it's just been wonderful support to both Christy and I, our entire relationship. She met Christy in college before Christy and I met. The program she's going to speak to you about today is very near and dear to my heart. The Northside Housing Council and Cooperative. The homes and the lots that she's speaking about where they're starting this project are right in my old neighborhood. I know all these empty vacant lots that have existed in North Minneapolis for quite some time. We lived there for close to 15 years. So very excited to hear about this and have her speak to you. Lena, the floor is yours.
The BLUU Northside Housing Cooperative Initiative. So you saw our introduction video, and I like to just pause here and say I was one of the original people at that gathering at the Convening for Black Lives in 2015, and it has been such a journey to create this beautiful community of Black Unitarian Universalists since that time. And since the beginning, BLUU was envisioned to be a mashup of both a Black Unitarian Universalist spiritual community and a place where we could do justice work, organizing work, trying to make the world around us a better place in the service of what we like to call collective liberation. So the housing initiative was born out of this desire and this purpose in the BLUU community. And originally, when we began, we were partnered with another organization. And at that time, they had said, we have this great idea for a housing cooperative for Black and Indigenous single mothers. And, you know, can you all partner with us on this project? And we said yes. The reason we said yes to that was because we have received a big startup funding from the Unitarian Universalist Association board. And I can talk a little bit more about that too later, but we actually received it as a form of reparations for harm that was done in the 1960s at the 1968 General Assembly to other Black organizers. So anyways, but our thought was that we don't want this money that we are receiving to start BLUU as a formal organization, a formally funded organization, to just stick with only Black Unitarian Universalists. We wanted it to also benefit and help one of the other Black communities that one of us on the organizing committee at that time came from. So both of my parents are Black. My mom's from the North Side, Minneapolis. My father's from a community called Rondo in St. Paul. And both of them were mixed. Both my grandpas are Black and Indigenous, and both my grandmas are white. But the white sides of our family largely disowned us. And so I was raised in a Black middle-class family. But my parents, and they raised us in a suburb for a variety of reasons, but my parents really taught me the value of not forgetting your community, not forgetting where you came from, not forgetting who loved you, and also remembering that a lot of Black elders sacrificed and made the world better for us, for me. And so, you know, I sort of feel a duty and a love to make it better for those coming after. And so through different connections, this opportunity to use some of our funding to invest in this housing project came about. And with this other organization, and at first we were only supposed to buy the lots and just hold on to them. And we were like, yeah, we can do that. We can just hold on to them. And this other org was going to do the housing development and create the cooperative because that's where their expertise was. Well, that organization had some troubles and they sort of folded. So we then had to decide, are we going to take this project on ourselves or are we going to sell our lots? And like many places across the country, there's gentrification happening. A lot of investor companies are buying up lots of land. They're buying up rundown houses, they're flipping them, and then the rents are no longer accessible to families who have been living there for generations. And so we decided we don't want to do that. We don't want to sell to a developer and contribute to the gentrification. And so we said yes to continuing the project because, again, we really wanted to use our money to help one of the communities that we came from. And this was, my connections were the one that came to the top. So we're in it. I don't think at the time we really knew what we were getting into. But I quickly ascertained that I was going to need partnerships to make this project happen. Because we have zero experience in housing development. If you want me to organize a march, with thousands of people, I can do that. But this new housing development was a new area for us. So I reached out to some community members that I know and forged new relationships with Urban Homeworks and Shared Capital, which are the two partners you see listed there. These are sort of our main partners on this project, two amazing, great organizations that do really good work. And Urban Homeworks has extensive experience in housing development, though they've never done a cooperative before. And Shared Capital has extensive experience in cooperatives. And so together we forged ahead with this idea, and we've come so far. The city of Minneapolis has emerged as a beautiful, amazing partner. In particular, one program in the city, the Minneapolis Homes Program, is investing $1 million into the project. And I'll tell you more about how they're able to do that, why they're doing that, and what that means on the next slides and in 1 second. After I just also list that our other partners in this project are a group called the Local Initiative. I'm blanking on the name now, LISC. But they are a funder of ours, and they have also been providing technical assistance on the program. And as well as we got a grant from Wells Fargo to help with down payment assistance. So I'm mentioning all of these partners in particular because the project would not be happening without them. And it is a highly collaborative project. And even as BLUU is spearheading it and leading it, and we own a lot, and we are definitely the drivers of this, and we are definitely invested ourselves organizationally. We've put about $250,000 into this project so far. Hopefully, when all is said and done and we sell the cooperative to the people who are going to live there, we'll recoup some of those costs. But of course, we're not in this for the money. But I'm also trying to minimize the losses to us as an organization financially. So this slide just shows you where the 8 lots are all over North Minneapolis. They're spread about a 4 or 5 mile radius. And so ours is a scattered site cooperative. So that means that, they're not all at one site. They're going to be on different sites. And this is just a map for folks who want to know where they are, where they're at. I'll call out our first site is the 1338 Logan Avenue site. This is the site that is our pilot site, and we are really close to breaking ground on this site, hopefully in the first week of May. We're trying to get closed before that. Sorry, the 3rd week of May is when we're trying to do the groundbreaking. First week in May is when we are going to be hopefully closing. So I'm working really hard towards that right now. And the other sites we have not begun to develop yet, in part because we want to get through closing on this site, do some analysis, do some evaluating, and take some lessons learned into our next sites. Yay, this is my favorite slide that I get really excited about. So this is the actual visual rendering from our architecture firm of what the houses will look like on our first site, 1338 Logan Avenue North. So they are 3 side-by-side houses. They're 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, new construction homes. They're going to be side by side, and yeah, this is what they're going to look like. This rendering is brought to you by our amazing architecture firm called Design by Mello. It's owned and operated by an amazing Afro-Brazilian architect. Her name is Damaris Hollingsworth, and we're really grateful to be working with her. And these homes are gonna cost, right now, they are costing about $420,000 to construct, because again, these are empty lots so we're constructing from the ground up. But because of that large investment from the city, as long as we stay in compliance with the agreement we made with them, which is to house folks making under 60% of the area median income. And that's just, that's a specific housing term. But, it's basically, these are folks not making a ton of money, 60% area median income. And then our project is targeting Black and Indigenous single parents, in part because of my lived journey and experience, and also in part because there is a specific history of land disposition and enslavement for those 2 particular groups of people, right? Indigenous folks and Black folks, or folks who are descendants of enslaved people. And I call that out specifically because some folks like to say our project is serving BIPOC, but we're not. And that doesn't, and the reason is not not because there don't exist other challenges in access for other people of color, but because our project, our community as Black folks, as descendants of enslaved people in America, and as folks working in collaboration and in solidarity with other marginalized folks, with Indigenous folks, we felt like we wanted to focus on those two populations, including, again, my lived identities. And those are where the greatest disparities are. In Minneapolis, the greatest housing disparities are in the Indigenous and Black communities when compared with their white counterparts. And so we really felt like this is who we want to target with our project. And so, so the houses cost, again, about $420,000 to construct each house, but the families will be able to live in them and take what's called a share loan to be a part of the cooperative. So essentially, they will be, in essence, owning their home for $195,000. And this is a really amazing feature of our housing cooperative project. And the reason is because of the city investment. So again, as long as we stay in compliance with ensuring, and we're going to partner with City of Lakes Land Trust to be verifying folks' income to ensure that we are serving the families that we're saying we're serving. And as long as we do that, that money stays in the cooperative. It's given to us by this City of Minneapolis through the Minneapolis Homes program. But there's nowhere else in the country where you can get a newly constructed home for $195,000, period. Like it is not happening anywhere in the country. So I'm pretty proud that we've been able to do that. We're partnering really closely with the city to make that happen. So it's really exciting. And a lot of folks here say, well, where are we going to get the families? So Urban Homeworks has a rental program, and they have many renters who have been in the program for, 5, 8, 10 years, who have not missed, a rent payment. However, because of the way mortgages are accessible or inaccessible to different members of the community based on largely systemic inequalities, those mortgages often aren't accessible to Black and Indigenous families. Some people have bad credit. Some people just have low wages, right? These are things that are outside of their control, but they still have been able to afford a rental for a really long time. So we are going to be recruiting the first families for this site with Urban Homework. And we're going to be taking families on a journey of education and really helping them understand, we're going to really help them understand what it means to be a part of a cooperative, financially how it works, because our cooperative is a little different, again, because we have that agreement with the City of Minneapolis. And the best way to think about our project is a middle ground between, if you have single family home ownership over here and you have renting over here. Ours is sort of a middle ground as far as wealth creation goes. And the reason it is because, in renting, you aren't making any money for yourself or your family. It's all going to the benefits of whoever your landlord is, the wealth growth of your landlord. And then in single family home ownership, you are getting that full equity. However, it's risky. And we know, again, because of systemic inequalities, that Black and Indigenous families have lower risk tolerance because they don't have often access to inherited wealth that was stolen from their ancestors. They often don't have the higher wages that their white counterparts do. And so the risk tolerance for when a water heater goes out or there's big disruptions in the housing market, what we see then is that Black and Indigenous families often lose their homes more quickly and are displaced more quickly. So the middle ground is the cooperative. And what's happening with the cooperative housing model is that the cooperative is assuming a lot of that risk. So it's collectivizing the risk. And it's also then some of the wealth, though not all of it, is going to stay with the cooperative, but some of it is going to go with the families. So again, it's this middle ground, and it is a way to ensure that, you know, they're not out here by themselves with the single family home ownership, but also that they're not just growing somebody else's wealth through renting. And the other added value of the cooperative model, of course, is about family stability, community stability. When we look at this as a broader societal approach, we know that public safety is on the minds of a lot of people in Minneapolis, right? And we know that when we stabilize families, when families have a stable base, their kids can do better. People can do better. They can access more jobs. They can access a lot of things that help stabilize communities. Another unique feature of our cooperative is that we have a reserve fund that will constantly be maintained and built over the years. But if a family experiences a medical or job emergency and they aren't able to pay their share of their monthly assessment, which is essentially their mortgage, then for 1 to 3 months, the cooperative will cover that for them. So this is another way that we are trying to help families stabilize and be okay through a lot of the hardships that we see in conventional housing translates into eviction and foreclosure. And so, you know, the totality of this project is around communal collectivizing as much as we possibly can to help families stay in the housing and stabilize their family. The other really beautiful thing about our project is that unlike some public housing options, you have to be at 60% AMI to purchase into the cooperative. That, you know, your income level cannot be over that. But if in a year or 2 or even 6 months, you get a better job and you are making much more than 60% of the area median income, you can still stay in that housing as the cooperative owner. And that's very different with other housing where if you get a better job, they kick you out because you're no longer meeting that. But we really asked for the city's support in that creation of that rule, and they gave us the green light, but we pushed really hard for that. So that also leads a path to out of poverty, a path towards more wealth accumulation for the families, because again, as long as they're coming into the cooperative making 60% AMI, if they are able to get a better job, a higher paying job, they can still stay in that affordable housing and really you know, start to have a savings account, start to build up their wealth in a way that they couldn't if they were then immediately kicked out, which we see in other housing programs. So those are a couple of the really beautiful features in our cooperative model that we had to work really hard to maintain and to build in there, but I'm really proud of those. And so this is just the last slide in this presentation that is just saying the way we're able to keep this project going and to make it happen is also through individual and donations and congregational giving. We have about, I think, 7 or 8 congregations that have given, some more substantially than others. And it's really also been critical to the success of the overall project, showing that we have support from our other Unitarian Universalist congregations to be able to support the project. Yeah, what keeps me going through all this? I think the vision of it. You know, I look at my own life as a solo mom by choice and really craving community. In a lot of ways, I'm like, oh, I wish I could live in this cooperative. But yeah, it's the vision of being able to help families in this really powerful way. And I will say that a lot of it comes out of my BLUU faith. One of the things we talk about in BLUU that has come out through this project is like doing what you can with what you have where you're at. And I think there's this way in which in Unitarian Universalism and in other areas of change making, sometimes, you know, we feel like the problems are so big that anything we do sort of doesn't matter, or anything we do isn't big enough. And even I've encountered it in this housing initiative when I come to present and people are like, well, why aren't you doing 100 houses? And why aren't you doing right? And I get it, right? Like the need is so big. But, I think we have to do, again, what we can with what we have where we're at. And so that's what BLUU is trying to do. We're trying to say we have some access to some resources. How can we use them in the service of collective liberation? And part of that is self-determination, right? Like being able to live a life that you love and that you can thrive in and that you can have more agency in. If you don't have housing, you can't, that's really, really difficult. And so we really see it as a cornerstone of our work in collective liberation. And yeah, so for me, I just hold on to that vision. And I will say too, I have been inspired by our partners in this project who have really walked with us through every major obstacles, and we've had some big ones. One of them was that our first design included a balcony for the families. But the city zoning laws didn't allow it. We applied for a variance. We were shot down. We had to pay $50,000 in redesign fees. And then there's also a lawsuit right now against the city of Minneapolis by a lot of what I would coin as like elite people who do not want higher density in the city. And so we actually had to go down. We got in just under a court-ordered deadline with our first sites for the 3 houses, but for all the other sites, as long as this is held up in court, we're going to have to go down to 2 houses per site. But through these challenges and others, our contractors, Amani Construction, this amazing team of Black women, they're from Kenya, Jennifer and Joanne Curria, they have been so supportive. Urban Homeworks team has been so supportive. LISC has been so supportive. Shared Capital. So I think, sometimes you have a vision in the world, and I've had these, and you present them to people, and people are like, no, this isn't going to work. We can't do it. Not going to happen. But when you have a vision, and then other people say, this is amazing, and we want to join you with it, then that is where, that is where just so much energy comes from. For me, right? Like just that collaborative space. It's just a loving, inspirational space. And you kind of commit to work through it, all the hard parts together. And so you just keep working through it together. So yeah, I will tell you, getting to closing, I'm going to have a really big celebration.
Our closing words for this morning are, in the end, it won't matter. And they come to us from John C. Morgan. In the end, it won't matter how much we have, but how generously we have given. It won't matter how much we know, but rather how well we live. And it won't matter how much we believe, but how deeply we love.
Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. You want the world to know. You won't let hatred grow. Put a little love in your heart. When you decide, this will be your guide. Put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place. And the world will be a better place for you and me. Just wait.